Halloween remains one of the most successful, long-running horror franchises in Hollywood. Beginning in 1978, Michael Myers has managed to scare the pants off moviegoers for more than 40 years, with sequels and remakes galore. It's also one of the most documented films in history, with almost every moment of production covered in various interviews. In fact, there's so much out there, lists of information from behind the scenes could be as long as the franchise itself, and would still only scratch the surface of the Myers-Strode family feud. There are now 13 films in the series, along with several others that vanished into production hell, but the OG movie has a special place in the hearts of countless horror fans. Listed here are some of the tidbits that are often overlooked when discussing the making of the film, and despite the many discussions that the film inspires. I'm Sean Ferrick for What Culture Horror, and here are 10 secrets from the set of John Carpenter's Halloween 1978. Number 10. The setting doesn't make sense. Halloween is of course set at the end of October, just when the world is touching on winter. The film, however, was shot in the spring of 1978 with an incredibly short 20-day shooting schedule. Because of this, the set they worked on caused issues from the beginning. The autumnal setting needed for the film had to be created artificially, more on that later, but it also led to a fairly large discrepancy in the film. In many scenes, the ground is strewn with brown leaves hand-painted by production designer Tommy Lee Wallace, yet the trees and bushes surrounding them are green, in more or less full bloom. There are, for the eagle-eyed, palm trees that appear as well, as the shoot occurred in California, not Illinois. Carpenter wanted to do something to fix this issue, but the budget wouldn't allow it, so Halloween is a film that seems to be timeless in its setting, at least insofar as the greenery is involved. Number 9. Want to renovate a house? Call a film crew. The Meyers house, as it appears after the opening scene, was the state of the house that the filmmakers found in real life. It was an old, abandoned building that looked absolutely perfect for the creepy dwelling of the Meyers family. It was largely filmed as they found it, serving to play as much of a role in the film as Donald Pleasence or Jamie Lee Curtis. However, toward the end of the shoot, the house was completely changed. All of the filmmakers, cast and crew alike, came together to paint, decorate and furnish it, so that it could appear to be a habitable place to capture the opening scene of the film. It looks almost unrecognisable and was changed with a tiny window to get the job done. Ingenuity came from a tight deadline. Number 8. John Carpenter knew a thing or two about branding. John Carpenter's salary was quite low for the film. In fact, he was only paid $10,000 for directing, writing and scoring. He was promised an additional 10% of the profits and full creative control by producer Irwin Yablans if he could deliver the film on time, which he did. However, there was another condition he asked for. Producer Tommy Lee Wallace described Carpenter as being ahead of his time. He wanted to set himself apart from other potentially anonymous directors of the genre. He organised for his name to be up front and centre in the credits, so that every time someone looked at the name of the film, they would be seeing his name as well. And here we are, still talking about it more than 40 years later. Clearly, the man knew what he was doing. Number 7. Panaglide vs Steady Cam. Budget issues again played a part in securing some of the best shots of the film. Panaglide was a competitor to Steadicam, made famous by the long shots in Kubrick's The Shining. It allowed the camera to be rigged to the operator for long unbroken shots, like the infamous opening scene. Cinematographer Dean Cundy relished the opportunity to work with John Carpenter, as although the young director was not established yet in Hollywood, he had a true interest in the methodology of how the film was put together. As he says, this was a new technology that they were learning to use by the seat of their pants. The film was as much of a learning curve for the production crew as it was for the young talent in front of the camera. Number 6. Michael's car was a rental and the agency had no idea. Tommy Lee Wallace was tasked with finding a government-looking car to appear in the film as the vehicle that Michael steals and escapes from the asylum in. While the fact that Michael drives has been an ongoing joke for several years, the actual car itself had an interesting history. The car that Wallace picked was a 1976 Ford Limited station wagon. The amount of thought that went into this car was simply to source it from the nearest rental agency. That was it. The iconic car that drove slowly by Laurie, Annie and Linda as they walk home from school was a cheap 2-week rental. The wire mesh to separate the front and back seats of the car was installed by Wallace, as were the asylum logos and the Illinois license plates. The rental agency were never informed that their vehicle would appear in the film, and to this day Carpenter loves the look of the car that was used. Number 5. Local kids got 2 Halloweens. Halloween was a very collaborative project. Many of the cast doubled as crew, helping with the filming and prop mastering. However, even more than that, many of the local families in the shooting location, South Pasadena, California, got in on the action as well. Many of the children that are on screen running around while trick-or-treating were simply local kids that got to enjoy another evening of going out for Halloween. This is best seen in the scene where Laurie sits waiting for Annie to pick her up. It is perhaps one of the few nice scenes in the movie. As for just a few simple moments, Laurie is just relaxing with her pumpkin, watching some kids have a good time. Probably probably the last time Laurie Strode ever enjoyed a moment of October 31st. Number 4. Dark lighting was all the better to save money with. To say that this film was done on a small budget doesn't quite do it justice. There was no money for reshoots, and so everything had to be captured in as close to a single take as possible. This also had another knock-on effect. While the crew didn't rely on natural lighting only, there simply wasn't enough money for the strong lights to illuminate many of the nighttime scenes. The film's distinctive dark look comes from a budgetary place as opposed to an entirely stylistic reason. However, when you look at scenes like Michael standing in front of the house, you can see that this issue is one of the film's strongest attributes. The dark and brooding atmosphere of the night scenes adds to the tension and fear that Michael Myers brings to the town. Who said doing something on the cheap doesn't pay off? Number 3. Michael is played by 3 men, a young boy and a woman. Several actors came together to take on the now iconic role of Michael in the first film. For the big unmasking scene at the end, Tony Moran plays Michael's soft face for the shoot. He didn't even know that he would be wearing a mask at all, and only got to as Deborah Hill had brought it with her that day. Speaking of Deborah Hill, it was she who killed Judith Meyers. The hand we see from Michael's point of view stabbing his sister repeatedly is that of Hill, as she was the only one small enough to fit the part. Nick Castle played Michael for the bulk of filming, with Tommy Lee Wallace standing in for several scenes. He was the production manager and had the best idea of how much force would be needed in stunt scenes. Finally, Will Sandon played the young Michael from the beginning. He would later go on to be a police officer, as he had no interest in returning to acting. As the saying goes, it takes a village. Number 2. Donald Pleasence is responsible for the iconic ending. The ending of the film is one of the truly iconic horror endings of all time. In the script, Dr. Loomis managed to shoot Michael 6 times. I shot him in the heart, causing the silent stalker to fall backwards, through the window, over the balcony, and down to the ground below. Loomis sees the body, speaks to Laurie, and is then shocked to find that there is no body down there anymore. Donald Pleasence, the veteran actor playing Loomis who had previously appeared as Blofeld in You Only Live Twice, made a suggestion to John Carpenter. Loomis had been Michael's doctor for many years, and as such was the one who both knew him best and knew what he was capable of. He suggested that they try something different. With Pleasence's suggestion, they filmed the ending with Loomis discovering the body is gone. Rather than register any shock, he stares fixedly down, resigned to the fact that this battle is not over. Pleasence would return in 5 subsequent Halloween films. The battle was far from over, and an iconic horror movie scene was created. Pleasence appeared in 5 Halloween films overall, not including archive footage or new actors playing the role. The battle was far from over, and an iconic horror movie scene was created. Number 1. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. With leaves? In an interview with Access Live, Robert Englund revealed that the Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween franchises are linked forever through him. For one day, he accompanied his then roommate to Pasadena to work on a film set. That set was Halloween. The task? Throwing bags of dead leaves around to make the sunny summer locale look like an autumn shoot for the film. At this stage in his career, Englund had not yet donned the razor glove that would become his most well-known prop, and Nightmare on Elm Street would not appear until 1984. However, he had already worked on a number of other projects, including one with Tobe Hooper, director of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. Hollywood really was one big family of psychos and murderers, working hard to bring solid entertainment to the fine people at home, watching while hiding behind the couch.